Dr. Horror's House of Video. Help! Help! Screams echoed through the crowded streets. Something huge and menacing and green rose above the steel grey city. A giant monster. A plant monster. The plant had grasping leaves that reached out like hands to grab frightened people below. The people twisted and screamed as the plant lifted them up to its leafy grip. Up, up, up to certain death. I yawned. Boring. I'd seen the plant at Squeeze St. Louis 3 times already. I rewound the videotape. As far as horror movies go, this one just didn't hold up. And I should know, I'm Ben Adams. I've seen them all. Movies with mummies, movies with werewolves, movies with creatures from other planets. I'm kind of an expert. In fact, my best friend Jeff and I plan to make horror movies when we're older. Right now, we're 12, too young to be taken seriously, but we've already made some horror movies with my dad's camcorder. I usually play the victim. It helps that I have red hair that stands on end and very pale skin. I'm great at acting scared, but what good does that do me now with Jeff at camp and me on vacation? That's where I am, on vacation for the summer with my parents. My mum and dad rented a house near the mountains for the whole month of August. There's nothing to do here, nowhere to go, and worst of all, no kids my age. Mum and dad say go out, have fun, but where? I'd rather stay inside watching horror movies, and I have. For 2 whole weeks now, I've been watching videos I bought from home. Ben, my mum called from the other room, you've been stuck in front of that TV all afternoon. She walked in, then yanked open the blinds. I blinked in the sudden light. It's time you got some fresh air. It's not healthy for a growing boy to sit inside all day. I'm going into town for gardening supplies. Why don't you come with me? Dad works in the city during the week and he's here on the weekends, but Mum is a teacher, so she has the summer off. And what does she do? She works in the garden. Ben, Mum said in a voice that meant business, do you want to come to town? It wasn't an invitation. It was an order. But, Mum, I argued, holding the monster video box so she could see the plant, I'm watching this educational movie about nature. Mum rolled her eyes. That's a horror movie, and I know it. You're wasting your summer, Ben, watching that stuff. Now, let's get going. In town, Mum headed straight for the garden supply store. I gazed up and down the street. I'd never been in this part of town before. Something caught my eye. A video store. I'll meet you up the block, I called out to Mum. Hurrying away, I tried to control my excitement. I could get a fresh batch of videos. And best of all, the store was called Mr. Horror's House of Video. It must be all horror movies. How lucky can a guy get? I stopped outside the store. The frayed awning drooped in front. A layer of dust covered the window. I wiped the dirty pane and peered inside. The inside looked as old and dusty as the outside. Videos were piled everywhere. Fine with me, I thought. Who knows what I'll find under all that mess? The door creaked open and I hadn't even touched it. This just got better and better. Quickly, I slipped inside. Can I help you? Someone asked in a low, whispery voice. I whirled around. An elderly man with flowing white hair stood behind me. He had white, bushy eyebrows and a face creased with 1,000 tiny lines. My name is Dr. Horror, he said in that whispery voice. He leaned heavily on a cane, then waved it at all the shelves. Welcome to my store. Dr. Horror smiled, and I saw that he was missing most of his teeth. Do you like horror movies? He asked. Are you kidding? I replied. I think I've seen every horror movie ever made. I bet you haven't seen any of these, Dr. Horror said, chuckling. I make my own in the old garage behind the store. I grinned. Really? Just wait until I tell Jeff about this, I thought. He'll be totally jealous. Even if he is having a great time at camp, I'll bet he hasn't met anyone like Dr. Horror. Go on, look around, Dr. Horror told me. I'm sure you'll find something to frighten you. This was so cool. I hurried to check out the videos. 10 Tales from the Mummy Files, Monsters at Midnight, A Boy and His Werewolf. These are terrific, I said, lifting a vampire video. The vampire on the front had deathly white skin. A drop of ruby red blood ran down his pale chin. But it was his expression that really grabbed me. His eyes bored into mine as if he were gazing into my soul. Which video should I get? I couldn't decide. They all look so good. Then I saw a movie playing on one of the video monitors off in the corner. On a screen, a huge monster, half man, half lizard, stepped out from a slimy swamp. He was searching for something to eat. Squish, squish, squish went his webbed feet as he spotted a boy in the distance. Lizard Man advanced. I watched, spellbound. The monster crept closer and closer to the boy. I moved closer too, the boy's face twisted in fear. I could feel the boy's fright. I sensed his horror right in my gut. I started to turn, but then Lizard Man clutched the boy's shoulder, and I felt something cool and smooth. I looked down. A green hand gripped me hard. Lizard Man, I screamed. Excuse me, said Mum. She let go of my shoulder and took off a green glove. I just wanted to show you my new gardening gloves. She shook her head and stepped in front of the set. These horror movies, they make you so jumpy. Ben, I don't think you should be watching them. Let's go home. I peered around Mum, trying to see the screen. Now, Mum insisted, and she dragged me out the door. The next morning I woke up early. I wanted to get to the video store. I had to see how Lizard Man ended, but I couldn't say that to Mum. She wouldn't understand. I'm going for a bike ride, I told her. Mum's mouth dropped open in surprise. You're going outside? Before she could ask any questions, I wheeled my bike down the driveway and hopped on. 15 minutes later, I stood in front of the video store. A closed sign hung in the door. The store was dark. I hopped from one foot to the other. When would it open? When would I find out about Lizard Man? I peered through the dusty window, hoping to spot Dr. Horror inside, but no such luck. But I did see a flickering light in the corner. A movie played on one of the sets. I squinted at the screen. Lizard Man! Dr. Horror, I called, knocking. Are you in there? I jiggled the doorknob. The door swung open with a creak. Dr. Horror? I called in. No answer. The only sounds I heard were the voices in the horror movie, and the only light came from the TV. I'll sneak in, I decided. I'll watch the movie, then sneak back out. No one will ever know. I edged forward, staring at the TV. An hour later, the movie ended. Lizard Man gobbled the boy in a few quick bites, then he had the other townspeople for dessert. Cool. Definitely one of the best horror movies I'd seen all summer. The VCR switched off. The room suddenly felt dark. Time to leave. I made my way to the front door and pulled at the knob. Nothing happened. I tried pushing. The door wouldn't budge. Oh, no, I groaned. I'm locked inside. Now what? I thought, squinting in the darkness. To my right, I spotted a sliver of light. Another door, a back exit. I crept toward it. Yes, it's a door, and behind it I heard noises, thumps and muffled shouts. What was going on? I leaned against the door, pushing with all my might. The door swung open easily. Startled, I stumbled and fell. I landed hard on my side. My eyes opened wide. A big webbed foot stood an inch away. Make that 2 big webbed feet. Huh? I let out a cry and jumped up in surprise. Lizard Man, in all his green glory, towered over me like a monster. A living, breathing monster, flicking his long, sharp tongue. His hot breath hit me like a blast from a furnace. Bright lights beat down on me, blinding me. I turned to run. Lizard Man stretched a long, sinewy arm toward me. He had me in his grip, a grip as strong as an iron hand. I let out a frightened squeal and squinted into the bright light. Was anyone else here? I heard sounds, feet pounding, hands grasped me, but they didn't pull me from Lizard Man. Their hands held me in place. Hairy hands, pale, white hands, hands wrapped with cloth. Werewolves, vampires, mummies. Wait a minute, a familiar voice shouted. I squinted into the light. Dragging his cane, Dr. Horror shuffled over. "Hello again," he said. Hi, I stammered. Dr. Horror's eyes gleamed. I twisted hard, but I couldn't break the monster's hold. "I see you found the door to the garage," said Dr. Horror. He waved his cane around. "What do you think?" For the first time, I took it all in. The monsters, the lights, the cameras. I gazed around the huge room. The monsters all looked familiar. The deathly white vampire, the mummy, and of course Lizard Man, the horror movie monsters. This garage was their film studio. How could I have forgotten? I grinned at Lizard Man. "Love your work," I said. Lizard Man nodded and released his grip. "And these costumes," I went on, "they're the coolest." Dr. Horror smiled. "Yes, you're a horror fan, right?" "The biggest." Good. Dr. Horror rubbed his hands together. "How would you like to be in Return of the Lizard Man?" "Excuse me," I stammered. "We're filming the Lizard Man sequel and we need a new victim." Me? In a real horror movie? I couldn't believe it. "Do you have any acting experience?" Dr. Horror asked. "Some," I said, thinking of some of our home movies. Dr. Horror tilted my head and examined my profile. "Well, you seem like a natural. It's a small role, but you don't even have lines." He thrust a bunch of papers at me. "Here's the script." I leafed through the scenes. Lizard Man emerging from the swamp, destroying a school. One boy escaping. "Is that me?" I asked Dr. Horror. "Yes. Any other questions? We're ready to start now." Now, I wanted to call Jeff at camp, tell Mum and Dad, maybe phone a few more friends. I wanted to play this up for all it was worth. "Can I make some phone calls first?" I asked. Dr. Horror checked his watch. "You have time for just one. I suggest you call your parents. We like to have their permission before filming. We can take care of your contract later." The phone rang 10 times before Mum answered. Of course, she had been outside gardening. "I'm not sure," she said when I explained about the movie. "But, Mum," I shouted, "this could be my big break. Please. It's so important to me." I took a deep breath. "Just be home in time for dinner," Mum said, finally giving in. I hung up the phone, then turned back to Dr. Horror. It's all set. Small alien creature actors wheeled a swampy backdrop behind me. Everyone bustled around, getting things ready. A four-armed actor plopped a tree right next to me. The vampire and mummy stood behind the cameras. The werewolf set the lights. "There," he said. A murky glow bathed the room. Dr. Horror motioned for me to stand against the tree. "We'll tie you up," he whispered, strapping me to the trunk, "for your big scene with Lizard Man." "Oh, right," I said, remembering the part in the script. All I had to do was act frightened. Simple enough. Dr. Horror shuffled over to his director's chair. "Now," he said, "you lost your way in the swamp and fell asleep. When you woke up, you were tied to this tree. You know Lizard Man is coming back, but when?" He turned to the vampire actor running the camera. "Roll him," he said. "Okay? Action!" Lizard Man crept through the swamp. I tried to look scared, but I was too excited, too happy. "Cut!" shouted Dr. Horror, shaking his head. "More feeling." I tried again. I opened my eyes wide. Lizard Man glided closer. His tail swept from side to side. His eyes darted back and forth. He really seemed hungry. What an actor! Lizard Man flicked out his tongue to catch a fly. Great effect. And the makeup. As Lizard Man slid nearer, I saw just how monster-like he looked. Even up close, green skin, red, bloodshot eyes, long, slimy tongue. "Hey, wait!" I called out. "What?" snapped Dr. Horror impatiently. Don't I need makeup too? Lizard Man stood inches away from me. I know I'm supposed to be an ordinary boy, but these other actors look terrific. I reached up to touch Lizard Man's face. Is this a mask? The skin, it felt bumpy and cold. It had to be a mask. Hey, can I see it? I tugged at the mask. It didn't budge. It's stuck, I announced. The other actors crowded around. How nice, I thought. They want to help too. The vampire actor stretched his mouth into a teeth-baring grin. His sharp teeth glinted in the light, coming closer. He pulled my arms back around the tree, then he tied me with another rope. I don't remember this from the script. Hey, I shouted, what's going on? Nobody answered. Instead, the mummy unwound the wrapping from his face. I gasped when I saw its decayed flesh hanging from its bony frame, and its eyes glowing red eyes. The werewolf shimmered for a moment, growling deep in his throat. He raised his paws and deadly nails popped out. 2 sharp fangs burst from either side of his mouth. His nose quivered with excitement. This couldn't be trick photography. What was it? I started to tremble as I answered my own question. These weren't actors from a horror movie. They were monsters. Real monsters. Let me go, I cried, struggling to get free. The heavy ropes cut into my hands. I had to escape. I had to, but the ropes held me tight. I was trapped. His eyes glowing excitedly. Lizard Man breathed in my face. His hot breath hit me like a full force. A smell like the bottom of the swamp. My stomach turned. Lizard Man's teeth scraped my face. His scaly hand gripped my neck. His tongue sliced through the air. Dr. Horror, I shrieked. Save me, please. Do something. Whoa, stop, monsters. Dr. Horror called out. Stop at once. The monsters stepped back. Lizard Man froze in place. Thank goodness, I thought. I'm okay. It was all just my imagination. I let out a relieved sigh. How could I get so carried away? Dr. Horror reached out to untie me, I thought, but I was wrong. He reached up to my head and he fixed my hair. Okay, monsters, now we're ready for the big eating scene, he said. Roll them. Just kidding, guys. It's just me. Hey, look, if you are after more chills, thrills, and... Did I mention chills? Please subscribe to the Leftovers channel. I'll be doing a whole bunch more super spooky material, especially the Goosebumps book reading. I've tracked down every single one of those 10 tales to give you goosebumps, and I will be reading each story. So subscribe, hit that little bell icon so you can keep getting notified. You know how the system works. And yeah, tune in next time for some more Leftovers from the Leftover Culture Review.